Right, Alan here. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. We have a very special guest, fun guest. I have a fantastic podcast that we're going to talk about the social dose with Paris Nicholson and, of course, our guest, Michael Judson Berry. And this is a lot of fun. I think people, if you haven't had a chance to check this out, I really do recommend because it's so much fun because we're diving into the latest social trends and news, and of course, his dead on impression of Moya Rose, which is known in the business as a direct offer, no auditioning required. Thank you for your time, Michael. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much for having me. I was so excited when you asked me. I was like, oh, yay.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. Well, this is a lot of fun. It's a podcast. It's on all major platforms, and essentially, you're a comedian, but you've stepped into the world of podcasting as well. Let's talk about the show for those who have not had a chance to listen yet. What can people expect? What is sort of the synopsis of the entire thing?
yes, so the show is called The Social Dose with it's me and my dear friend Paris Nicholson. And we were approached to host this. It's a social media news show, but news is a very loose term because we're both just goofy. He's a comedian, I'm a comedic sketch performer. So imagine it's NPR with two people who are just sort of bumbling through life and talking about TikTok trends. Um, it's really fun. We usually pick 3 or 4 stories from the last few days. Oh, it's every Tuesday and Thursday, by the way. So it's twice a week. So we pick sort of the top stories from the last couple of days that people are talking about on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, whatever we find amusing. And then we quote unquote report on it. And usually that's us being like, have you seen this video? It's ridiculous. And please, everyone, go try it. Or we do it ourselves, like with the red flag challenge. We both just did it on the show. And we're just dying laughing at each other's red flags. But it's fun. And we have correspondents that come through. We just had Nurse Blake, who's a huge TikTok Instagrammer, very funny nurse who came on, and we played a game called What Has Paris Put Up His Butt, which felt appropriate for an ER nurse. So if that gives you a sense of the show, it's just fun, it's light, and especially if you enjoy social media, you'll get a kick out of it.
What has the response been from people who have listened? Is it's just so fun, and I think you talk about the things and say the things perhaps that a lot of us are thinking about just the world of social media in general, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, the response has been fantastic, and it's an interesting mix. It's people who either like are huge social media, like total like addicts, and they're like, "Oh my God, I just saw that trend and I couldn't wait for you to talk about it." Or people who are like, "I'm barely on social media, but I find you two ridiculous and funny." So they'll pause. I have a lot of friends who listen and they like pause when it's a video that sounds fun, and then they go and they look it up and they're like, "That was hilarious." So they use us as their way to like find fun new things that usually don't come up in their algorithms. So yeah, I'm sort of like that. I feel like my interests are so niche. Like my For You page is like rescue dogs and European castles. So thanks to researching for the show, now I see so much more. I was like, there's so much out there. Amazing.
Yes. Well, the podcast is fantastic. And again, you do cover a lot of fun and interesting topics. But really, I think the big theme here is just the power of social media and how it's so part of our world. I don't know how else to describe it. TikTok, in particular, I think it had been around for a while, but pre-pandemic, and then, of course, during that, a lot of people became very popular on there. And
Yeah.
then now, with just the most recent VidCon, it has included TikTok as part of its culture and the conference and how people have leveraged social media. You yourself, the same thing with the Moya Rose impressions and then quarantine time, and then it just became viral instantly. Now, I have to ask, when you set out to do all of this, I'm assuming, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the idea of not necessarily trying to go viral was a motivation, but really just putting content out consistently every day. And then it just picked up. How did that happen? I know that's a pretty broad question, but I think people would find it interesting as to how it all started for you.
Yeah, no, not broad at all. It's good. Yeah, because before COVID, I was sort of like the old man among my friend groups where they were like, oh, bless Michael. Like I can barely turn my phone on, let alone use it. So I was not social media savvy or tech savvy. I had Facebook and Instagram, and that was it. And during lockdown, yeah, I just had this idea to do Moira Rose doing basically a video diary because enough friends had told me that my Moira Rose impression was pretty good. They were like, oh, you can
It
do the
is.
accent pretty well, which apparently is difficult to crack. So,
I
so
love
yeah,
it.
I just plopped a wig in my head and I was like, I don't know, let me make an Instagram video. And for me, it did really well. So then I did another one and that did even better. And you're right, it was actually pretty fast that it all started to go pretty viral. And then I moved over to TikTok, and that was when I downloaded TikTok for the first time. And it was just this fun journey, like all through lockdown was just all about experimenting. And but I think the thing that was most powerful for me and that I heard resonated with people was, yes, I would always do, Moira Rose, and then people challenged me to try the family and then other characters. So I'd be like Moira and Britney Spears having a video dialogue, or Moira and Patrick Stewart. Um, but a lot of it for me was like I wrote all of my own scripts, and a lot of it became very autobiographical for me. So I was using Moira's voice to express how I was feeling in a funny way. And a lot of people told me, especially during lockdown, they were like, oh my God, you made difficult things funny, or you found the silver lining. And I think that's what my mom told me early on. She was like, well, Michael, if you're going to do this, make sure you keep it positive and hopeful because that's what we need. And it became weirdly therapeutic, but yeah, and then accidentally successful. So um, yeah, it was a great journey, and it's amazing to me that it's all still going. It's been fun to see where it's all led.
Yeah, it's done quite well for you. So, what are some of the lessons that you learned along the way as a content creator, perhaps even a podcaster, that you feel has helped continue with your success?
For me, the biggest thing is authenticity. And I think
Okay.
that's what I mean by saying, like, even though I was using Moira as a character, it was all things that I was feeling. So
Okay.
at that time, if I was like feeling depressed because I was locked in, I was like, how would Moira address these feelings that I'm feeling? And they were all really genuine. And everything I've done, I I think maybe because I had the advantage of not being super savvy when I started, nothing was particularly forced. It all was like, I have this feeling and I want to share about it in this specific way. And I think people see when things are genuine, even on social media. I think you can tell the difference between somebody who's talking about something they're genuinely passionate about, whether it be cosmetics or comedy or whatever, or they're just being an authentic version of themselves in a funny way or in an inspiring way. I think people can really latch onto that. And at least those are my favorite kind of creators to watch, are the ones who are very true to their own voice. And when we started doing the podcast, that was initially a thing I struggled with because Paris has done many podcasts before. I'm new to this. And so I'm an actor. So I started to do like podcast voice, or I would imitate Paris, who, if you don't know Paris, he's basically the real life male version of Alexis Rose, complete with the little wrist flips. Um, so it took me a minute to remind myself. I was like, no, no, no. What I need to do is just be myself and trust that that's enough. And that was a good reminder for that. So I think that's true for anybody when you're creating content or you're presenting something like that. I think the more authentic you are to you and trust that you are interesting enough, you know, much easier said than done. But
No, but I think it's true because I mean, in a sea of so much content, it's really hard to like stand out from the crowd.
mhm. Yeah, and I think that's the big things. You can see the people who are like, no, 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 I'm doing this because I love it. There's something extra special about it. Um, so yeah, as opposed to people who are like, oh, I saw somebody do that and it worked for them, so I'm gonna imitate it just to try and get views, you know?
Yeah, clout chasers. I think it's interesting, because when I listen to you and the chemistry that you have with your co-host, it's very authentic and very real.
Mhm.
You don't feel like it's a put on. I mean, obviously you're performing in some ways, so there is a little bit of elevation, but I think it's mostly just authentic energy that comes through. Do people solicit you for advice when they want to start, especially with the success you've had on social media?
Oh yeah, I've had a lot of people DM me to be like, I really, especially actors who are like, I want to try and take advantage of this to try and like further my acting career. What can I do? And that's basically the idea. It's like find something that genuinely makes you happy and keep at it, because I've definitely had moments, I'll have a bunch of videos, only get a handful of views, and then something will blow up and get a million views. And then a few, it's very fickle and it's very mercurial. So you just, I think, do what brings you joy, because then the views become less important because you put out something that you're proud of, that you feel happy about. Some of my favorite videos were ones that didn't go necessarily super viral, and some that were sort of throwaway were some of my most successful. And I still go back sometimes and I'll watch some of the ones. I'm just like, oh, I know this one didn't like blow up, but God, it made me laugh. Or even when I found out Catherine O'Hara was like, she doesn't follow me, but because she's not on social media, but she has a couple friends who do. And when I found out that she liked the videos, one person was like, yeah, she quoted this one video of yours, and it was one of my least popular videos.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, ah, that made me feel so good. I was like, you know what? Very few people saw this, but she saw it and she liked it enough to memorize it and quote it.
That has to be validating too as a content creator, to feel like somebody at that level is watching your content and
Oh,
quoting it.
oh, and that, I mean, she's even before Schitt's Creek, she was one of my like comedy icons. So when I found out that I sort of had her thumbs up, oh, I could have retired right then and there. I was like, I'm done. Everything after this is just, icing on the cake.
I love it.
But yeah, that's what I mean. I think it's like, if you're doing it to make you happy, I think then that makes all the difference.
Right. And that's how I think we define success, right? If
Mhm.
you're happy doing it, whether you're getting paid or not, and then all the other stuff comes along later. And that's where the validating part comes, because it's like, okay, even if 5 people versus 5 million see what I'm doing, I was told when I started to do this, it's like, imagine a room, you might have only 100 listens, but imagine 100 people in one single room listening to you. That's a lot of people.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And
Uh-huh.
that to me is like how you continue to build and build. And then the rest follows as long as you're consistent and authentic, as you mentioned.
Exactly. And don't compare yourself to people, which again, I think so much easier said than done, because we
Hmm.
all do that in every, walk of life, every facet. We can't help but compare ourselves. But, everybody's in a different place and you don't know what's going on behind the scenes with them. So, you might have 20 views and somebody has 6 million views and you're like, oh, they're so much better. And it's like, no, you can't do that. So that would be a big thing. That's why, I mean, I think it all comes back to like, does it make you happy? And I think that idea of picturing people, I do that all the time when it's like, it seems like it's like, oh, that's not that many. And I'm like, wait, no, no, no. Just picture, even you're right, 100 people. Imagine 100 people in your living room. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's brings perspective. Where did the journey begin for you, Michael, as a storyteller, as a content creator? Like, where did that begin? Was there something that you saw, something that you experienced when you were younger, maybe later in life, that made you want to take a run at this world of entertainment?
Oh, I started performing when I was a little kid. I did my first professional show when I was 6. I have always loved it. I think when I was 5, my parents took me to see Beauty and the Beast in Toronto. And
Okay.
speaking of social media stuff, that was a canon event for me, as people on TikTok recently were all sharing their Spider-Man universe canon events. But that was one where I walked out of that show and it blew my mind. And I was like, I want to do that one day. And luckily, I have parents who are very supportive and love theater and love music. And so they took me to see more shows and let me audition. And I grew up in a town where there was a lot of regional theater. So I got into it really young and just loved it. I loved singing, I loved dancing, but mostly I love making people laugh and doing like goofy voices and goofy characters. And I got really into like Monty Python and Mel Brooks, and um, I would watch like the Carol Burnett show and Robin Williams, people like that who were really charactery. And
Mm.
then I would practice the voices and like at dinner for my poor family, which God knows how they didn't like, throw me out the window. But I would come down to dinner and be like, hello, family. We're eating hamburgers tonight. And they were like, oh my God, my mom. But that's where I would practice just for them. And I think I still do. Like, I'm still that weirdo who like will walk in at my boyfriend, like I'll walk in the apartment, be like, hello, love, how you doing today? And he's like, Mike, oh my God. But I
Enough.
just think it's fun. I just have always loved playing characters. It brings me such joy.
Wonderful. Well, outside of you being solicited for advice, what is the best advice that you've been given somewhere along the way that has helped sustain you and kept you motivated?
Ooh. Um, oh gosh, I've been really lucky. I've had a lot of really great mentors and people in my life. I think it was when I was in grad school. So I went to the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art for graduate school to study Shakespeare and classical acting. And because I wanted a big old kick in the pants. But the head of the program, this woman, Penny Churns, who's trained amazing people, Benedict Cumberbatch, Ruth Wilson, David Oyelowo, like an amazing, amazing teacher. And she liked me. And I was very performy. And at that point, I was like, I do comedy acting. I'm a total clown. I'm goofy. And she took me out to lunch and sat me down. And she basically did that talk, her version, a much more eloquent version of Be Yourself and Trust It, where she was like, trust that your voice is enough. You can be funny and you can put characters on, but you need to trust that you can be interesting. And so the whole time I was there, she only cast me as leading men and villains. I wasn't allowed to do anything funny. And she's like, you need to find this more serious side of yourself because it's a bit more genuine, and you need to be able to use that. So it was a great, great learning experience. I definitely walked out of there with a much stronger sense of self and much, much more self-confidence. It's amazing how, even though it was drama school, it trickles down so much into your daily life, you know.
I love it. Well,
So thank you to
congratulations.
Penny Churns.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's just, I think we all have that one or two people in our lives that really just like impacted us on a very important level, subconsciously. And I feel like those things continue on in our lives in some way and manifest in different ways and really help us experience true joy when it comes to creating art. Well, the podcast is great. Congratulations, The Social Dose. Michael, where can people listen and where can they connect?
Yes. So the Social Dose is everywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, all the places, every Tuesday and Thursday. And it's only like half an hour. It's short, it's quick, it's just fun and silly. And then you can follow me anywhere at mjudsonberry on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all the places.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations. All the success is well deserved. Michael, thanks for your time. I appreciate you hanging out today with us. It's been a fun. You're great. I love it. I love the impressions, and I think
Thank
people are
you.
really people are going
Thank
to
you for
enjoy the
having me.
show. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.